we have a very important panel talking about very important things, which is this. Now, I guess we can call it a trend, and maybe that'll be one of the things we talk about. Is this a trend now or not? And we've seen in January, Lilly Direct come out with a platform for patients to access their Lilly pharmaceutical, some of their Lilly products online with a telemedicine visit. And now Pfizer has done the same thing with their direct to patient, direct to consumer offering, specifically now for Paxlovid, and surely a lot more in the future as they begin to expand and roll out this product and this offering. And we have three experts in the area of telemedicine and digital health and life sciences. First, we have Matthew Holt, who is a 30-year veteran of digital health and understands the trends and the trend lines and the adoption rates of how these different technologies are adopted in the healthcare system and developed. And he is the founder and the author of the Healthcare Blog. And then we have Robert Rodriguez, who's also a 30-year veteran in digital health. He comes out of Manhattan College. For those of you who are from New York City, you know the fine Jesuit institution, and actually located in the Bronx, because it used to be in Manhattan when it was founded. And he is an exit veteran, and again came out of Manhattan College, worked at Quasha Lipton, the benefits consulting firm that was very tied to a lot of the healthcare reform efforts that we saw in the 90s, including some early efforts around HIPAA and things like that. And has now founded HelixVM and is seeing a very high growth number in his company, Helix, and is seeing a lot of good success there. And with him is his VP of Operations, Trisha Krausankas, also from HelixVM. And so today we are fortunate to have these three experts to talk about this trend we're seeing in this really high growth asymmetrical telemedicine use and growth in life science and direct to patient consumer pharmaceutical strategies. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning.
We'll start off by giving Trisha the first question. Trisha, again, thanks for joining. And if you could tell us a little bit about how Lilly Direct and Pfizer's DTC plans are potentially going to integrate with existing telemedicine services and telehealth services to help patients really access medications in ways that are going to be not only of high experience for them and easy to get to, but also allow them some of the follow-up care that they're going to need in doing that. And we've seen elements of this, right? Like, for instance, in Detroit, we see that 80% of Detroit residents don't have transportation, and so they have to use public transportation. So getting to a physician to get to their pharmaceuticals is not an easy task, as most Americans take for granted. But Trisha, walk us through a little bit about that element that you're seeing.
Sure. Well, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having us today. I think this is a great topic, and certainly part of a culture which I would say adapt or die, right? Because telehealth, I think, is instrumental in general. Like you said, Detroit is having those problems, but so are so many people across the country. So any help that can be provided to those people is great. So for Pfizer or Eli Lilly or anyone, adapting these programs are just incredibly instrumental. It gives patients the faster service, the better quality, the fact that they don't have to leave their home to go get care, and that people are just there to help them in their recovery phase. We all know that the faster patients can get care, the faster they're going to get better, and the faster they're going to have a better quality of life. As a cancer patient myself, I can speak personally and professionally for those systems and the great opportunity we have in the pharma segment of things to make such great improvements for patients there. It's convenient. It's just a win-win for everybody. So
yeah. No, those are great insights. And again, Trisha, I hope that everything's going well with your cancer treatment.
Very well. Thank you. Very well.
No, certainly.
Yeah.
we wish you the best on that. But and I think the idea that we're talking about accessibility, that's also balanced with a lot of folks that are just trying to understand, what the potential risks are, and we'll talk about those as well. And no one is a bigger curmudgeon when it comes to healthcare and life sciences than our next guest, Matthew Holt. So maybe Matthew can lay into some of the risks and some of the elements of direct to consumer pharmaceuticals that are challenges that we should be looking at, and how we should be mitigating some of those risks as we increase accessibility and affordability. Are there challenges as well, Matthew, that concern you?
Well, Matt, Stan, thank you, and hi Trisha, hi Robert, hi everyone. Let's be real. The telehealth boom during the pandemic, it was not properly, integrated into the workflow of clinicians or how patients usually went about their care. It's gone away because we haven't figured out a way to, even though telehealth and remote monitoring are obviously much, much bigger than they were pre-pandemic, they're nowhere near where they were at the height, and they're nowhere near where they could be overall. So it's still figuring out its way how to fit into a healthcare system that's predominantly fee-for-service, when really what telehealth and remote patient monitoring and what I call the continuous clinic, which I think I talked about, Stan, on one of your sessions 5 years ago, so it's not exactly a brand new idea, have not been created and integrated into the way that the healthcare system works. We're not doing, proper 24/7 monitoring of people with chronic illness. It's still very hard for people, whether they're a cancer patient like Trisha or someone with chronic illness, to access care easily on a 24/7 basis. And this applies for mental health, chronic care, and and many other forms of care. So into this world, we drop this neutron bomb of the GLP-1s, right? Which is my word, we have a drug which looks like it works incredibly well for about a third of the population. Oh, and by the way, if we paid the Danish price for Ozempic, it would cost us $150 billion a year, but we're not paying the Danish price, right? The American price is, 10 to 15 times that. Is going to be, it could add $1 trillion plus onto the healthcare system. So you have this real scrabble where the American healthcare system is not ready to figure this out. And so you are seeing, we're not talking about Lilly Direct and the Pfizer one to come in a vacuum. We're seeing these telehealth plays, which are being magnified by other compounding pharmacies who are trying to deliver different versions of the GLP-1s, by folks like Roe and Hims, who are delivering it on a sort of prescription basis, and other players in the weight loss field, the folks like Vita and Verta and all the others, trying to figure out how to fit them into sort of the diabetes and weight loss treatment they're already doing. So I would say that, number one, you mentioned affordability. There's no such thing as an affordable GLP-1. I mean, the price is we have to figure out a way to deal with the pricing of it. If it is as important and necessary a drug as it seems to be, or the drugs as they seem to, drug class they seem to be. And by the way, there are more coming. There's not just, the Lilly and the Novo Nordisk one. There's a bunch of others which look like they might be more powerful and do even better, yet to come. So we have to figure out a pricing mechanism that makes sense for that. And then the second thing is we have to figure out a way to afford to easily, do what Trisha's talking about, get people access not just to the drug and the prescription, but also to the aftercare and the support they need it. Because we're talking a lot about putting people on this drug for a while and then taking them off. And does that just revert back to the GLP-1s? Does it just revert back to the issues people had before? Is it just masking the symptom rather than actually curing it? So I think we're very early in this. It is a little surprising that you'd have a pharma company decide that they're going to go literally direct, put it in the brand name. Obviously, they're not delivering the service. It's being delivered via other companies and being fulfilled by other companies. It's a little surprising to me that they jumped in that, because it's not as if people are really struggling to get the drug otherwise. I mean, the drug use of these GLP-1s is growing fast. On the Pfizer side, who knows what they're going to do, because their main market, obviously, on the vaccine and Paxlovid seems to be going away as at least the attention around COVID leaves. But I don't know if we will see significant numbers of other drug companies diving in and delivering, and essentially creating a brand-related pharmacy. But we might do, And the question is, what support are they going to put around that?
Yeah, great point. And just from what we're hearing and seeing from the life science executives that we work with, there's a lot of interest in that. So we're anticipating a substantial adoption rate of these sorts of services within life sciences over the next year or two, and we'll see how it works out. I think the topics that you bring up, the really the issues, the challenges that you bring up are spot on. Robert, let's talk a little bit more about challenges and less from a policy side, like Matthew's just gone through, but more into the challenges side of the technical components. Obviously, when people think about health tech today, nothing is more prevalent than artificial intelligence. Whether that's the proper term for what actually is being used today in technology is another discussion, but we'll call it artificial intelligence for the sake of debate here. And artificial intelligence is obviously a critical component to all of this as we're building machine learning tools and algorithms around platforms like LillyDirect and Pfizer DTC. But tell us a little bit more. You've got a phenomenal technical background, not just in telemedicine, but obviously in medical clinics and pharmacies and everything that you've done in your last 3 decades of experience. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing with AI when it comes to deploying these sorts of technologies?
Well, as it relates to the deployment of the technology, I think that adoption is very important, but it's adoption on both ends. It's not just adoption for the patient, but it's also adoption for the providers. And so I think that on the first side, on the patient side, patients are impatient and they want to just get things done and move on. It's like you go into the doctor's office and they give you a form and you basically just check off random boxes and you move on. Well, guess what? If you wanted this to work in an AI world, it can't work that way. So I think the first thing is, obviously patient conditioning to make sure that they understand the importance of what they're doing from the perspective of using it within a decision support framework is extremely important. And so that's going to take time for people to get comfortable with the use of these tools, particularly as a data aggregation method, okay? Because that's principally what these are today at this point, okay? And then I think on the provider side, what's extremely important is, frankly, a little bit of a training issue and making sure that they learn to read first. It never shocks me how you could give a doctor, in essence, an AI output, and they're like, they don't read it. So without reading it, it's very, very hard to understand what the value is if you're going to basically go back and get the patient either on camera or in person and literally walk through the entire process all over again. Okay, very frustrating for patients. It drains a lot of time. It's not inherently profitable, but it is a habit. So I think that the trust levels have to improve by the providers that the information that they're getting is good and that it's reliable. And obviously, in order for that information to be reliable and good, they need to have confidence that the patient is actually providing the information. So, one of the things that we've done, for example, in order to increase that trust level, is we actually provide the physicians the actual questions the AI asks. Because a lot of times they're like, well, did you ask the right question? Did the AI do this? Did the AI do that? Well, here's the entirety of it. Another thing that we do on the platform is we try to bring in objective data, not just the subjective data the patient gives. Again, in order to increase the level of comfort that the provider has that the information that they're staring at is information that's been properly gathered. So very, very important, because I think that that's where, from a legal perspective as well as from an economic perspective, getting that adoption by the providers and getting that comfort level is really where I think the economic value is of an AI within a clinical setting.
No, that's really well put. And Trisha, let's dive back into something you said earlier that was really interesting, which was really around the accessibility. And we talked a little bit about that, not just for the folks in Detroit, but rural Americans and a lot of folks that have trouble getting to a pharmacy. Just even the town I grew up in, the nearest pharmacy was a half-hour away. So talk a little bit more about that. What are some other benefits that you're seeing in telemedicine and in these sort of direct-to-consumer channels that we're seeing manufacturers develop?
Well, first and foremost, Detroit's come up now a couple times, so big shout out to Detroit because I was born and raised there. So I always have my heart there and wish that town, they've come so far recently as towns around Detroit have, and one of their biggest fans to get them back to a good level there. So love Detroit. But yes, I just wanted to touch first on something Robert had said, because being in healthcare for 30 years, I came from, when I started in healthcare, from paper charts, right? So a patient not only signed in on a paper chart, excuse me, but the care was provided in a paper world, slow, inefficient. You never knew what the patient was doing elsewhere, right? So there was no way to verify or validate what was going on with that patient as a whole. So, again, I think where we are today, and watching over the last 30 years of the development of not just now telehealth, which is huge, but the steps in between, right? From paper charting to EMR to better EMR systems, and watching that growth and development has been extremely just, it blows your mind, because it's just come so far. And from the patient perspective, as it relates to your question, the same is happening. It's not just that our physicians know more, our physicians are able to do more, our physicians are able to prescribe more quickly, get the medication to the pharmacy more quickly. But all of that, the outcome is the same, and that's a better treatment plan for the patient, a faster turnaround for that treatment for the patient, and a more accessible, to your point, platform for patients to be able to go to. They don't have to interrupt their work schedule. They don't have to interrupt their anything else that limits them from being able to get access to a physician or medication or a plan of care that's going to get them better is there for them. And that accessibility means better, quicker.
That's great. And Matt, you talked a little bit about that too, right? When she's talking about health equity in terms of accessibility, but you also talked about some of the health economics around these GLP-1s. And maybe double click on that as well. You're a big health equity.
Well,
so
yeah. So I mean, I would say, there are two contradictory things, right? One is, how do you manage and best manage the care of people when they need it, which is delivering care. By the way, also for people with different chronic conditions, changing medication regimens, changing amounts, really noticing this. If you look at the people who are managed best with things like hypertension, heart failure, diabetes, there's a lot of it, and the companies that do this very well, there's a lot of interactions between the sort of the hybrid primary care groups and the folks who manage, the doctors and the clinicians who are managing this. There's a lot of interactions. There's not just the one visit every 3 months, every 6 months. And there's a lot of titration of medications and that kind of stuff. So that's why you need the ability to access, people easily, because, but yet telehealth really hasn't gone very far. So I think my concern, Stan, is that it doesn't fit into the way that we're paying for healthcare at the moment in general. Now, then you talk about the GLP-1s, you talk about, access to these highly expensive drugs. Lilly and these others have decided that, they're going to take this access problem head on. They're going to integrate in things like patient support and all the rest of that. But that's only going to go so far. In the end, it's another access point to telehealth for these particular medications, particular diseases. But I don't really see them and pharma companies as a whole as becoming care delivery organizations, which is what we need. We need to work, whether it's GLP-1 or any other form of medication, into the whole of the care delivery that we're delivering these people with chronic illnesses. And until we figure out a way to do that better, and for the main healthcare system, to react and incorporate these technologies in a way much more so than it's done so far, we're not going to get that. So to me, this is a modest attempt to give us another access point. It's not a reformation of the whole system.
There we go. Yeah, that's spot on. And that's good. We do need a much better system. And of course, if anyone wants to know about how healthcare is going to look in 10 years? Ask Matt and see how far
They
away.
can ask you too, Stan, but we've been saying this for a long time, and 10 years away has always been, a long time in the future.
Well, that's right.
And it's remained that every time we've done this for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why Robert's here, because Robert's going to take healthcare and make it look like Uber. So, Robert, let's talk about that. How does AI play a role in helping accelerate not only the development of some of these direct-to-consumer manufacturer platforms that we're seeing from Lilly and Pfizer, but also accelerate the optimal use so that patients do have more like a Uber for healthcare experience when they're trying to get a pharmacy or get a doctor's appointment?
Well, I think there are a variety of factors. I think it's AI plus workflow is very important, because without workflow, the AI just, in essence, it's just nothing more than a provisioning of data. So, my view is, for example, that, the role that AI can play is to help, in essence, validate a patient for a Pfizer Direct, validate a patient for an Eli Lilly. They spend millions of dollars on consumer marketing. They spend millions of dollars marketing doctors, but that gap between when the patient knows about a medication and when they actually go into the doctor's office, it's a pretty big leap. So the AI, telemedicine, and smart workflows around that can really bridge the gap, including to the point of being able to qualify a patient, even get an authorization for treatment before that patient even goes to their attending physician. So that's really where I think a lot of this is the AI and the automation help, but you do have to put together workflows. I do think that, to Matthew's point, that that there's an issue that with the drug companies, that they're in essence trying to create volume into very narrow provider networks. And really, when you're looking at caring for a patient on a global basis, that narrow provider network is going to come short. Okay, they play an important part, but it's not everything. So even if they are doing a good job of qualifying patients, getting them into physicians that will, in essence, support the distribution of their product, at the end of the day, that patient is still going to need a lot more care navigation tools, and it's not clear to me how how a Pfizer or an Eli Lilly Direct is going to be able to do that on behalf of the patients. I think that there's other digital health platforms that are certainly making progress on that and offering a more true GP PCP type of experience for the patient.
Just to pile on Robert's point for a second there, Stan, that is the issue. If you look at the companies that have pre-GLP-1s been managing diabetes and weight loss and what have you, they have a bunch of stuff around it. It hasn't been particularly effective. And in fact, the Peterson Institute said they weren't effective, but they have a bunch of tools around it, and coaching and devices and medical management of various flavors. We have had the CCM and the RPM and the RTM codes under Medicare and elsewhere trying to help promote this. But we haven't really built that system that Rob was talking about. And, then if you throw into this, the problem is that a lot of the insurers are wanting to get people off the GLP-1s and say, well, maybe that at 6 months, they've dropped their 20 pounds. Maybe we can maintain them without keeping those drugs on. That's in direct contradiction to what Lilly and some of the other, and Novo Nordisk and the others want. So to me, we have a lot to work out. And as I think Robert's point was, this is direct access to a very narrow network for a specific particular drug, which is probably not the way you'd want it to go longer term. But nonetheless, as he said, a lot of interest from this in pharma companies, because they're trying to figure out how can they get any one person more they can give them that drug at that price is very valuable.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. We are absolutely incredibly grateful for your time today. We know how busy you all are, and we'll look forward to updates from you all later on the progression of this over the next coming months.